Hello and welcome to our latest video. In our last video, we looked at the most important big picture end goal of investment overall. As I explained, ultimately, the whole point of investment is that there comes a moment at some stage in your life where you're able to live on your money, or even better, the money you make from your money, rather than the money you make from working. In today's video, I wanted to spend a bit of time on something really important when it comes to that statement. And that is the fact that most people are massively cynical about it even being possible. Too many people think that financial markets and investment are for the rich and not for them. A 2023 survey by Nest Pensions found that nearly half of Britons believe investing is primarily for the wealthy, for example. And this is because so many people believe they need a large amount of money to start investing. And this is what I wanted to look at in detail today, because this belief is completely wrong and massively harmful to millions of people. The reason investment really does work, over long enough periods of time at least, and even if you start with tiny amounts of money, is because of the extraordinary power of something called compound interest, or compounding returns. As I showed in my first book, if you invest regularly every month for many years and achieve roughly stock market returns, you have a solid chance of building to a 6 or even 7-figure pot, almost no matter how much you earn. The key point here is that compounding really can turn hundreds of pounds into millions of pounds over a lifetime of investment. People are all too cynical about this truth. And this is the key reason that financial markets can deliver life-changing outcomes. It is a massive tragedy that so few people understand this stuff or believe in this reality. And the reason for this is quite simply because most people don't understand how compounding works. A 2023 survey by the large insurance and investment company Aviva, for example, found that more than 60% of respondents didn't understand compound interest. It probably goes without saying that people who believe they have half a chance of turning hundreds of pounds into millions of pounds are far more likely to become investors. People who don't know about or understand compounding in any detailed way and who don't, therefore, believe in this potential are far more likely to do nothing. And this is one of the key reasons why so few people invest. As we've seen, 60% of people admit they don't understand compounding. And this is a big reason why some way more than 60% of Brits don't invest at all. Without exaggeration, this is one of our biggest problems as a society, as I've shown in several of our previous videos. It is utterly crucial to understand and believe in the power of compounding. So today I wanted to look in a bit of detail at how it works, given how important it is to understand and to use in your life. For what it's worth, you can find a fair bit online suggesting that no less a figure than Albert Einstein was pretty keen on the idea of compounding. Quotes attributed to him on the subject include, "Compound interest is the most powerful force in the universe," and "Compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world." He also reportedly said, "He who understands it earns it, and he who doesn't pays it." You can find sources which say that when asked to name the greatest invention in human history, Einstein's answer was compound interest. For the sake of full disclosure, if you spend a bit of time Googling this stuff, you'll see various fact-checking websites that call into question whether he ever said any of this, but, as one top investor has put it, whether or not he really did say it, I strongly suggest you adopt the idea, and I couldn't agree more. So let's look at it in more detail. Let's look at compounding. So in some ways, you might think of compounding as a form of free money, a fairly exciting idea. And over long periods of time, compounding can deliver a great deal of free money too. To explain, imagine if you invested £1,000 today. Imagine too that whatever you invested that in went up by 10% this year. If you think this sort of return is unrealistic, by the way, I would point out again that US shares have averaged more than 10% a year in the century from 1923 until now. So in this scenario, if you've made 10%, you would then have £1,100 1 year later, your original sum plus £100 of investment return. Now for the free money part. Assume you invest that £1,100 for another year and achieve 10% again. The following year, you would have £1,210. This time, you've made £110 of investment return. Crucially, however, £10 of that return is essentially that free money, because that £10 is the return on your return. At first glance, this may not seem particularly exciting, but over time, the effect is incredibly powerful. To illustrate this point, if £1 and only £1 invested today achieves that 10% or so delivered by US shares over the last century, after 40 years, that pound would have turned into just over £45, so 45 times your money. If you want to be more conservative and assume you'll only be able to make, say, 7%, which is roughly the return of the US stock market after inflation over that same time period, by the way, then you would have turned £1 into about £15 in real terms, so 15 times your money. Put another way, the £1,000 television that a 25-year-old might buy today could rob their 65-year-old self of somewhere between £15,000 and £45,000. This is just how powerful an effect compounding can have over many years and shows just how important it is to try and get at least some money to work as soon as you can. And this isn't just for rich people. The average British salary in 2023 was about £35,000. That's just over £2,300 a month of take-home pay after tax. If someone on that income was able to save and invest 10% of this, they would have £230 a month to invest. And if they managed to return around 10% on those investments, after 30 years, say from the age of 30 to 60 perhaps, they could have nearly £500,000. After 40 years, if they'd invested from 25 to 65, for example, they could have approaching £1.3 million. And if you want to be more conservative again and assume around 7% return, you would still be getting to nearly £600,000 over a lifetime of sensible investing, only 10% of the average UK salary. Of course, many people earn more as they get older. Anyone who earns a bit more than average and manages to invest 10% of that each month into financial markets from, say, their 20s until their 60s has a really good shot at building to some way more than $1 million, and in many cases, a lot more than $1 million. The tragedy is that so few people believe this, and as a result, so few people are doing it. This is a disaster for millions of us as individuals and for our society as a whole. And by the way, if you want to have a play with some numbers to get a detailed idea of the outcomes you will get with different sums invested at different rates of return, please do spend some time checking out the compound interest calculator on the website, thecalculatorsite.com. We'll provide a link to that in the comments below. It will give you a really good sense for how this all works and what you might be able to achieve. So that's nearly it for today. I just wanted to show just how powerful compounding is. Compound interest means that if you can achieve a half-decent return on your money, even really quite small amounts can become very large amounts over time. It is the number one reason that you should believe in investment and what it can do for your life overall. It is also arguably the most important thing anyone will ever learn about money. The tragedy is that 60% or more of us have never learnt this stuff and so don't believe in it, and this prevents them from investing at all. As I've said, our society really would be so much better if far more people did, which is one of the reasons I spend time making these videos. One final important point to make is that compounding works both ways. If you borrow money, the power of compounding hits you in reverse and potentially pretty hard. Almost all debt will compound against you negatively at a higher rate than your investment returns might compound for you positively. This is because credit card APRs are a very long way higher than the investment returns even the best investors in the world are able to make. Luke Johnson, the former chairman of Pizza Express and Channel 4, refers to this as the gruesome mathematics of leverage in reverse. And this is why it is so important to understand compounding, eliminate debt, and get into investing as soon as possible. As I hope I've shown, even only something like £25 a month or similar really is worth doing. Get started as soon as you can, no matter how little you might have to invest to begin with. As you build an automatic saving and investing habit and start to see the results of doing that, over time, you're more than likely to increase the amount you save. And this is literally life-changing. As we continue in this series, we'll look in more detail at how you might do this, how you might find the money for investment, and what you might do to maximize your chances of benefiting from that incredible power of compounding. As ever, if you want to ensure that you're one of the first to see these videos when they're published, please do click the subscribe and bell buttons. And also, as ever, if you share our mission around just how important this stuff is, just how important financial literacy is for all of us and for British society, please do consider sharing this video and our other videos across social media. Until next time, I wish you the very best.